So, if you've been in my community a while, you know that I'm a fan of resistance training, strength training for women, especially, once we're past the age of 40, 50, and beyond, we start to lose muscle. We really have to retain that precious muscle for so many different reasons: our independence, our strength, bone density, power. All of these things become so important as we age, prevention of falls, our independence. And this is not always as far as lifting or lifting heavy or strength training. This can be a challenge. It's not always available to every woman over 50, especially if she has joint issues. I work with a lot of women. They've had problems with shoulders, back, hips, knees. I myself have had two surgeries over the past year for my back and my shoulder. And so I'm always looking for different modalities to train to get that same stimulus without the stress on the joints. And this is what we're going to be discussing today. Today, I have with me Conrad Sanchez. He is a leading expert in what's called the whole body electrical muscle stimulation. That's a mouthful. Fitness in the United States with 14 plus years in the industry, a master's in kinesiology, and a client list that includes some top celebrities in Los Angeles. Conrad is pioneering a new era in physical fitness training. Now, his work focuses primarily on optimizing fitness efficiency and proving that a 20-minute EMS session can deliver the same results as a 90-minute conventional workout. He's been featured on several podcasts and continues to educate fitness enthusiasts, athletes, professionals on how EMS can transform their bodies. Welcome to the show, Conrad.
So much, Carol. That was an excellent introduction. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Absolutely. So, first of all, what exactly is EMS and how does it work? We'll
Yes,
start there.
let's start there. So EMS, short for electrical muscle stimulation, which is in self short for WBEMS, which is whole body, which is different from localized EMS, which you can find in physical therapy as a TENS unit or other modalities. But so EMS, electrical muscle stimulation, in short, it's basically a suit that has electrodes on all the major muscle groups. It has a battery. It's controlled usually through an iPad or a device, and it provides electrical impulses that engage your muscles. How does it work? You contract your own muscles through an electrical signal of your nervous system. So your nervous system sends a signal, contracts muscle fibers, and then your muscle contracts. This is mimicking that electrical signal and enhancing it. And so adding to it as if you were lifting. And so it will engage type 1 and type 2 muscle fibers, which we can get into later. But in short, it's a 20-minute workout where everything is going to be turned on. And so by the end of the 20 minutes, it's as if you had done 20 minutes of legs, 20 minutes of arms, 20 minutes of core, back, etc.
Now, is it doing all the muscles at once? Or, okay, that's interesting. And now, how strenuous does it feel? I don't know if that's the right word. I mean, do you feel the burn like you would in a conventional workout?
So intensity is the word I would use.
Yeah.
It's as intense as one can handle. So if you want it very high, we can go very high. If you want it low, we can go low, and we can set these for each individual muscle. So if you want higher glutes and abs, we can blast that while keeping the triceps low if you want. But it isn't as intense as you want it, and you do feel the burn of working out because it will tire your muscle out faster, because it is engaging as many muscle fibers as it is as intense as you go.
It's something that I was thinking about as I was researching for this podcast is I come from an athletic background. I was a bodybuilder for many, many years, did my last competition three years ago at the age of 60.
Good for you.
I'm one of these people, not everybody likes to work out. Not everybody gets that kind of workout, the runner's high, they used to call it. I'm one of the people that got the runner's high, that could hike for hours, cycle for hours, get in the gym. I mean, I can easily turn a weight training session into an endurance session if I'm not careful, because I enjoy it. I like it. How do you deal with people like me that come to you and it's like, 20 minutes, really?
So it is still intense. By the end of 20 minutes, so far, I mean, I don't think any of my clients were like, I wish this was longer. They're usually like, okay, 20 minutes, this was intense enough. Let's stop here. But it is true that there are people that like lifting things and throwing things, and it is kind of interactive and fun to do those things, but we can also do those things with EMS. So sled work, ropes, whatever you want to do, you can still do with EMS, except swimming. I would not recommend going into a pool with an electrical suit. But anything else that you want to do, you can still do. Now, it will shorten the workout, but that's the beauty of it, is that it will make it more intense and shorter. If you want to work out longer, you can still take off the suit and still do your spinning class afterwards if you want.
So, how many times per week would somebody be doing this? Would it be dependent? Like women always ask me, how many times a week do I lift? And I say, well, it's dependent on your goals, your schedule. What do you want to achieve? Because two workouts might not be enough for one person if they really want to reach a higher level.
Yeah, I'm going to give the same answer, but there is a restriction, which is you cannot do EMS on strength settings. It has other settings. You can do cardio, you can do recovery, right? And cardio and recovery you could do every day if you wanted to, but on the strength settings, you're only allowed to do it every other day. So it imposes a rest day. Now, in that rest day, if you want to do Pilates, yoga, run, do whatever you want. But the recommendation is that if you do EMS, which equates to a resistance training workout, the next day, be very mindful not to lift very heavy. Then the recommendation becomes like 2 to 3 times a week is ideal, but it kind of depends on what else the person is doing. I have people that I see once a week because they're doing many other things as well. And then some people I'm seeing 2 or 3 times a week, and this is the only exercise that they're doing.
I like the way it can kind of fit into the schedule and then the time factor, because that's a big deal with the clients I have. Like, I don't mind putting in 2 hours at the gym, but not everybody wants to do the 2 hours at the gym. So I do like that. Now, how does this compare to these vibrational plates that we're seeing out there?
So completely different technology, right? Vibration is just very rapid vibration that forces you to try to contract and maintain stability. This is engaging your nervous system to stimulate more muscle fibers. So it completely different realms of technology and results. The results with EMS is very equivalent to strength training. And this is based on research studies where they compared one group doing 3 workouts a week, 1 hour workouts a week for 16 weeks, another group doing EMS once or twice a week. So it was 1.5 times on average. So 1 week once, 1 week twice for 16 weeks. And at the end, they all had very comparable strength results. So by the end, one group had done 32 hours of resistance training. The other group had done 8 hours of EMS. So the equivalence there is 1 to 4 hours. I don't like that equivalence because even though the strength results were comparable, you're not getting other aspects of working out, which is like the outcome of strength is great, but there are other aspects of like strengthening your joints, strengthening your connective tissue, metabolic conditioning, everything else that comes with working out, burning calories, etc. It's that you cannot compare one session to like 4 hours of training. So I
Now,
equate it a little closer to like 90 minutes to 2 hours.
90 minutes to 2 hours. So now we have strength, we have muscle development and we have power. And I think people get confused because we're not always talking about the same thing. Like in bodybuilding, it was about aesthetics. So even though we were building the muscle, we weren't power lifters, which people often think, oh, okay, because you've got this muscle, you're as strong as a power lifter. Now, how does EMS help, or does it help with the power factor? Because that's something we lose really rapidly past age 50.
Yeah. So the technology of EMS will fire all the muscle fibers that it touches. So it will engage all the muscle fibers. To that, you can add the type of training. So with EMS, you can do resistance training, you can do cardio, you can do power training, right? So I can have you do box jumps, and ball throws, mitts and ball, right? And it's a matter of like loading, like cueing the person to like, okay, you're gonna squat in a very eccentric manner, like 4, 3, 2, 1, and then explode and jump up or just pop up, and that will train power. But the stimulation is going to be still firing all the muscle fibers at the same time.
Now, if you have somebody, I'm 63, so let's say you have somebody my age and they can't do the box jumps anymore, how would you work power for that individual? Is that even possible?
Yeah. Yeah, so just similar to traditional training, like if you couldn't do a box jump, then what would be the next thing you can do? If you can do a full squat, then we would start there. If not, it could be a sit to stand. But the idea is that to train power, there has to be an eccentric load and then a rapid concentric movement. And so doesn't matter what the movement is as long as you're performing those two aspects of it. It can be just like a sit very slowly and then try to stand up very quickly. And then with EMS, we'll just add to your contraction, and so you won't need external weight or to throw a ball or anything like that, or kettlebells or anything, because the load will come from the stimulation.
I like that you brought that up, just even the sitting and standing, because I try to explain to the ladies I work with, that's power when you're, standing up from a chair unassisted, because you see people get older and what are they doing? They're holding on to everything to get up and down, or getting up and down off the floor becomes something they cannot do.
Yeah, yeah, and so it's important to train it to not lose it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I see so much of that. I go to a gym where, they have the senior program and I watch people, and it just breaks my heart to see people lose that mobility because it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I find like a lot of these programs that are geared towards seniors, they often they're thinking like, oh, they're seniors, so let's give them 3 pound weights and like let's
I
do
know.
small movements, and when they should be picking a ball and throwing it against the wall, and which will make it fun too. But
Yeah, when I first hurt my back, which was now 9 years ago, when I had really a profound injury and wasn't able to walk for a while, the sciatic pain was so bad. The nerve pain was so bad down the leg. And I remember going for physical therapy, and the physical therapist he was rather young, and he was telling me, well, you can't lift ever again, and you're going to have to take up pool walking. I'll never forget it. I'm like,
what
oh,
is it?
heck no, I am not doing that. Maybe when I'm 90, I'll be pool walking. I don't know, but not in my
And I
50s and
take it that
60s.
you kept lifting.
I kept lifting. I did it smarter, and I didn't do the heavy lifts, and like certain movements were off the table for me, like a heavy back squat or a heavy loaded deadlift was really out for me. But I kept going and I kept competing for many years after that. So never forget that. When clients come to you, you've worked with celebrities, you've worked with athletes. Is that primarily who you work with, or people of all ages come to you?
Primarily, EMS attracts a certain type of person that doesn't quite like the gym, or doesn't want to have a gym in their house. Here in LA, a lot of people have space to train in their backyard and so on, but not everybody wants to have a squat rack and weights, and or don't have the time to go to a gym and meet me there or so. And so this EMS allows a lot of flexibility in terms of equipment, because you don't need a lot of equipment. You just need the suit, and then I carry like 3 5 pound weights to help guide movements. But even my strongest clients, they maybe do 10 pounds. I rarely go up to 15 pounds sometimes. But the suit allows a lot of accessibility in terms of equipment, in terms of low impact. So people with injuries. But to answer your question, I have one client who's in her mid 20s. I have a couple clients who are in their early 30s, but everybody else is 40 and up. And like I would say, like late 40s and up. And my oldest clients are 80 and 77 years old. They train together and they're so cute. During the recovery, they hold hands. It's amazing.
I love it. I love it. What got you into this modality of why this modality of training? Because I'm sure you're experienced in so many different areas.
Yeah, so I was in New York, and I very quickly, out of insecurity, like when I got my personal training certification, I thought like, okay, great, I know how to train healthy people with able bodies, but what happens if someone has diabetes? What do I have to take into account? And so I got a lot of education very quickly at the beginning of my career, and to the point where by the time I started working at a gym, I had accumulated all these certifications to work with people with diabetes, with cancer, with injuries, knee pain, pregnant women, et cetera, et cetera. And then by the time I got to the gym, the manager was like, you're the only one that can train all these special populations. So I'm just going to feed you clients. And so it became my niche. So without thinking like, oh, this is marketing 101, find your niche, I had a niche. So throughout my career, I always worked with people with injuries, chronic conditions, And I was always looking for ways to like, how can I train them better? And EMS kind of fell on my lap. I met a French investor that owned a franchise in Brazil, and he wanted to recreate it in the US and hired me as a head trainer. And so I started getting all the education around EMS and started going to workshops and so on. And then COVID hit, and so that plan
Oh,
never
yeah.
got off the ground. But I stayed within EMS because I fell in love with it. I thought EMS solves so many obstacles around exercising consistently, like time, motivation, injuries, pains, aches, access to equipment, that it is a no-brainer for the population that I was already working with.
It was similar for me. They got to where when I was personal training, they would always send me the people who'd had the past injuries or they were recovering from cancer and chemo. And I got the reputation for being more versatile than some of the other trainers. And I think it's important for the listeners to know when you're looking for a trainer, really look for somebody with that knowledge because I see the most incredible things when I'm at the gym. I'm just kind of watching and observing and I'll sometimes see trainers doing things with people that aren't the best protocol.
Yeah, if you want to lose 5 to 10 pounds and you have no issues, any trainer will do. But
Right.
the moment that you start having back pain and then a knee issue and then you tore your rotator cuff, and then once you start accumulating what I call pieces of the puzzle, you need someone that wants to solve these pieces and not sort of like give up and like, oh, well, then I don't know what to do with you.
Right, right. Or hand everyone the same protocol because that's something I've seen too, the one size fits all blueprint. Now, safety wise, can you get injured doing EMS or is it pretty safe?
It is very safe. Can you get injured? Sure, you can fall into a pool with it, but no, it is very safe. The impulses are very mild. Obviously, with electricity, something can short circuit or whatever. But like in my 6 years of doing EMS, like it's happened here and there, and yeah, it will zap you a little bit, but within 2 minutes it goes away. Sure, but otherwise it's really safe and it's really low impact. There's nothing to be concerned about. There are some restrictions, like if you have a pacemaker or electric medical devices, like a insulin pump or so, like you cannot do EMS. If you're pregnant, you cannot do EMS. If you have a severe cardiovascular disease, severe kidney disease, severe neurological disease, like there are certain restrictions, but beyond that, it is extremely safe. And the only risk is overtraining. So, to your question of like, well, why only 20 minutes and can you do it every day? And it's the moment that you start extending it to like longer sessions and doing it too often without recovery, that's when there are risks of like rhabdomyolysis and things like that.
Okay, I see. Now, when someone comes to you, what is the protocol that you take? And I know it's dependent on their goals, but let's say a woman comes to you, she's 55, postmenopausal, she's put on unwanted pounds, hasn't exercised in a while. Walk us through what would her transformation be like?
So the conversation that I would have is like, what are your goals and how much time you have? And the recommendation there, I would say, would be twice a week to space out the sessions. Maybe we do a session on Monday and then Thursday, so there's plenty of time to recover. And then twice a week, everybody has gotten results. And the results that I measure, so I take fat caliper measurements and
Yes.
circumference measurements. And so by measuring both things, I can see like, oh, well, maybe the circumference hasn't changed, but if the body fat has gone down, then it means that she's created muscle. So I take measurements every month, more or less, which usually equates to 8 sessions, and everybody gets results. And of course, you have to dial in diet and sleep, and hormones can't be out of whack, and so on. But the transformation has been pretty incredible. The one aspect that I don't really advertise it, but it's if you have pains and aches, and especially once you cross the 40 years old, which I'm there now, there's pains and aches every day. Like
Yes.
you don't know. You wake up one morning and you're like, oh, why does this hurt? I have no idea why. But these pains and aches tend to get alleviated by the stimulation. It's something that electricity does in the body, and this we've known for like ancient Greece used to like treat headaches with electric eels, and we know that electricity has these little benefits for the body, and these pains and aches tend to dissipate a little bit.
Yes, in physical therapy, we use the TINS unit. And then in a few weeks, we're going to be using the needling, the dry needling,
with
which,
with electricity.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So and I've used it in the past for my back, and it's definitely beneficial. Like you get a release of some of that muscle tightness and pain. Because of course, I mean, you know this, when somebody has an injury, all the muscles around it will tighten, and it's really hard to get the body to let go. The body wants to hold on to that and protect us.
Yeah. So this can I've actually created a pain management program with the device that I have that allows to mimics a TENS unit. And so a lot of after a session, I sometimes, like if the client was like, "Oh, my back was a little spasmy or whatever," like I'll do a few minutes of pain management to alleviate them, and then typically they get up and they're like, "Oh, my back feels a lot better."
Now, if somebody has nerve pain or sciatic pain, is it still helpful?
It is still helpful because it's about, so sciatica tends to be about right, it's a pinched nerve basically in
Right.
your SI joint, right, and so alleviating, either activating the glutes or alleviating the hamstrings or the lower back, like sometimes will help the sciatica nerve to like sort of relax a little bit, and so this we can do that. And the other thing is that if so for lower back pain more than sciatica, but lower back pain sometimes tends to happen because we're using the lower back too much instead of using the glutes properly or the upper back. And with the stimulation, there is no escaping the stimulation. So a lot of personal training and through all my years, like a lot of the warm up included glute activation. Right, people
Mhm.
are sitting all day. You need to activate their glutes and then work out. Here, there is no escaping it. And you turn on the glutes, and their glutes are going to be activated.
I like that idea because, coming from the world of competition, I did figure first and then bikini. And that was a big one, was activating the glutes. They were so hard to grow, the hamstrings and the glutes on many of us. And I hear that from my clients. They're like, well, I'm doing the exercise and I'm not getting that connection. I'm not feeling it. Have you had competitors like myself come to you for that purpose? Like, hey, I can't grow my glutes.
So I've not trained people in competition yet. I did have a colleague that was training someone that was actively competing, and what they were working on were mostly the lats. She had trouble engaging her
Oh,
lats,
yeah.
and with the simulation, there's no escaping it. You're going to engage your lats if it's on. So I know the theory behind it, and the practice. It will work for anybody if they want to grow glutes. And I mean, what has happened with my clients is that, because I take measurements, what I didn't say what measurements I took, but everybody I take arm circumference and tricep body fat, belly and abdomen belly fat and circumference, and then I take circumference of the hips, and I take calipers of the thighs, and everybody's hips grow. So and how I measure the hips is at the widest part around basically the glutes.
Okay, interesting. I was thinking too, my brain was ticking away when we had to pose. And I know that's not the majority of listeners that they're going to have to get up on a stage and pose. But the big one was opening those lats for the figure pose. And boy, was that hard because everybody wants to use their arms to
Yeah.
make their lats look bigger, which is not how you do it. And I remember just spinning hours trying to get that down. So I imagine that would be helpful to use this modality for sure.
Yeah. So lats, glutes, and obviously if your lats are bigger, and this is like a lot of women are like, I don't want to train shoulders and for aesthetic reasons, but if your shoulders are wider, then your waist is going to look smaller.
Yes. Yes. I try so hard to get clients to see, no, you're not going to bulk up. It's really, really hard to bulk up for a woman unless you're doing something, doing some kind of substance to bring that along. And boy, it's hard to get women to understand, yes, if your shoulders are a little wider, lats a little wider, that waist is going to it gives the illusion of the hourglass shape. Celebrities, how did you get into training celebrities and what is that like?
So it's very much like training normal people.
I'm sure, yeah.
They have insecurities and they have problems like everybody else. But it was through, initially it was through a doctor that knew about the technology, had found out the technology and started recommending some of his patients, and this is how I got connected to a couple celebrities. And then I had an article on USA Today written about me, and within an hour celebrity called me and was like, "Hey, I just read this article and I would like to try it." And great. Unfortunately, it was the day of the fires here in LA, and so then the article got buried very quickly. But but yeah, no, it's I mean, it's been fun. I mean, it's fun to talk to these people and how they talk about their job. Like I ask everybody, like, how's your day, how's work, and it's just that their work everybody's aware of, and so it's all different.
And I'm sure they come to you for various reasons. Maybe some are like, yeah, I just need to be in shape, and others are getting in shape for a project or a role.
For a role, yeah, so far I have not had anybody that hired me for a role. We've discussed potentially having me on set because there is no need for equipment and this is quick, and like on set people don't have time, and unless you're The Rock and have your own trailer with a gym in it, like most people are not going to have access to equipment, or they're not going to bring a trailer with a full gym inside. And so EMS makes it ideal for on-set training, but it hasn't happened yet, but I'm hoping that maybe in the future it will.
And now you talk about it being a suit. Is it
No, it's not very heavy. I mean, the suit does weigh something, but it's not like you wear the suit and it's kind of like a life vest, or like
okay?
it's not very heavy. It's not a lot of people ask me like, oh, this is what's adding the load. Basically, you're working out with like a heavy suit. Like, no, it's the suit weighs a few pounds, but nobody puts it on. It's like, oh my god, this is so heavy. So you can move pretty freely.
Okay, I was picturing there's a guy that comes into the sauna at the gym with a full-on sweatsuit, and that's what I was
No, no. It's more it's like a giant. I can go pick it up if you want me to show you what it looks like.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Give me a second.
So for the listeners, you won't be able to see what he's gonna show us, but I recommend you go on over to the YouTube channel that I have, Carol Cavino Fitness, and check out the video there, and this way you'll be able to see exactly what he's gonna show us in a moment, because I know I'm very curious.
So
Oh, okay.
so it's
Very different. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it has electrodes. There we go. It has electrodes on all the major muscle groups. And
Okay.
I took out some of the electrodes, but basically this cable would attach to an electrode that goes here, and that engages the lats and abs, chest. And so this is just a very easy suit. It's very adjustable, so it can fit various sizes.
Okay.
And I do have different sizes. I've trained an NBA player, and I've trained someone who's 5'2" and completely.
Petite and okay, that's
It's,
good to
it's
know.
customizable.
Yeah, it does kind of look like a vest when
Yeah,
I'm looking
yeah.
at it.
And
Yeah.
then it has a lower part for the glutes and hamstrings and quads, and then armbands for the arms.
Okay. And you also certify as well, is that correct?
Yeah, so I started doing. So I've been lucky enough to get all the education. Right now, in order to get education through EMS, you have to buy a suit from a manufacturer and hope that the manufacturer has education. There's only 3 or 4 that have education, and I've taken all their educations and I've compiled it together, like to make it a little more concise and allow trainers that are not necessarily sure that they want to invest in getting all the equipment, they can still get the education through my workshops. And so I offer in-person workshops here in LA every now and then. Otherwise, I offer virtual workshops pretty much every 3 months.
And research wise, can you talk to us a little bit about the science?
Yeah. So there is research. There isn't a lot of research because this is a newish technology. It's been
Right.
around for like 12, 13 years, and research takes time. But there are maybe like 150 research studies around EMS, and there are more that come out. And a lot of the research is focused on comparing it to strength training and like, is it good for athletes? Is it good for menopausal women? Is it good for people suffering from sarcopenia and so on? And so far, all the research shows like this is a great option. In my opinion, for certain populations, it is the ideal option because it's low impact, it's intense as the person can handle, and it's short. And there's nothing in the fitness industry that combines all 3 elements at the same time.
Do you see this eventually being in physical therapy offices and in gyms?
Yeah. So physical therapy offices, I've actually was training clients out of a physical therapy clinic where they also had Pilates and so on. And what I think will happen is more cross training. So using EMS with Pilates, for example, or using it in physical therapy. Like, for example, if you're doing rotator cuff exercises, great. You're training your rotator cuff, but like imagine if you were doing that with EMS and you were also getting a full body workout while you're training your rotator cuff, right? Like you're there for like 30, 40 minutes at the physical therapy office. That might is that taking away from your usual strength training or fitness time? Or is it additional? And so combining it would be ideal.
Now, with a rotator cuff surgery, and if somebody hasn't had this done, they may not know how absolutely slow the healing process and the protocol is. I mean, it is slow. I've had to be patient, and I can be not the most patient person in the world. At what point, and I don't know, you may not be able to answer this, but at what point do you think it could be introduced? Like 2 months in, and then at 12 weeks is we're going to start working on more independent movement.
I mean, you could have started from day one because you could potentially not move your shoulder and still get trained everything else.
Okay. Okay.
And so it's sort of like, I mean, you could have gone to the gym and done lunges, right? As long as you're careful, but like then how do you hold the weights and what, like do you load the bar or do you just do lunges
Yeah.
with body weight, right? And so, but with EMS, you could have just done lunges, not move your shoulder at all, and the stimulation would have given you as much of a load as you feel challenged with. And even if you don't want to move that much, like people ask me all the time, like, do you actually have to work out? Like, can you wear the suit and not and just lay there? And like, the answer is
That's
yes,
funny.
you can, but the adaptations are way better if you actually move as intended. But to anybody with injuries and so on, you don't have to move through a full range of motion to get the benefit because the stimulation is directly on the muscle. So as long as you can engage the muscle, you're going to get benefits from
Okay, that's good to know because when I had shoulder surgery, like the first couple of weeks, any movement hurts. It doesn't matter whether it's low or anything that just kind of jostles that arm is going to hurt. Now, as I'm getting better, not so much. And I'm pretty good because I have the training to kind of tuck that arm in and not use it when I'm at the gym and really isolate the muscles. But not everybody has that knowledge to do that. So it would definitely be beneficial for those people. And then I think to have it in a gym, if you have somebody come in that's recently come off of an injury or a surgery.
it. Yeah. So in gyms, the why it hasn't caught on yet, there's a education factor, and the gym would have to somehow educate their trainers.
Yeah, there
And then
would.
there's an investment factor of like, okay, we're going to invest all this money in a technology that we're not really familiar with, and then we have to like somehow make this work. And to a certain degree, I mean, I think that EMS and personal training are compatible. And I have a lot of clients that do EMS with me once a week or twice a week, and still have their trainer once or twice a week or
Mhm.
3 times. It is compatible because it is doing slightly different things, or it is at least doing strength training through EMS again, even but with less stress on the joints. And so for athletes, this is great because athletes typically are stressing their joint during practice, like
Mhm.
practicing their sport all the time. And like to do strength training that doesn't add any stress to their joints is great. And it's short, and so they can have more time to practice their sport. But in gyms, I do see like it's going to take a little bit of time before a gym decides like we're going to fully commit to investing in the equipment and then getting all of our trainers educated, rather than just staying where we are. And in terms of budget, like budget, not budget, but profit, because sessions are 20 minutes, like they could potentially double up, their time. Like personal training typically is 1 hour. So if you cut the sessions to 30 minutes, then now you can double up the session, right?
Oh, yeah. When I was working, they had moved to 30-minute sessions, and it's surprising how much you can get done in 30 minutes if you're very intentional and don't waste any time. And so I love the idea of the time factor. Is it costly to get these suits?
Yeah. So the what costs a lot is the battery. Each suit is around, I'm going to say between $800 and $1,000 per suit. And you need like about 5 sizes of suits. The battery is close to $10,000.
And this isn't something where somebody would just go, I'm going to get a suit and the battery and start on my own, right? They need
Yeah,
somebody.
I mean, some companies allow renting the battery, and so you just pay a monthly, like a lease, like a car lease. Right? So you're just leasing the battery, and then you return the battery. But not all the companies are doing that. Otherwise, for an individual, there are two companies that are selling directly to consumer. You don't need a trainer to use EMS, and those systems are a little more limited in terms of like how much power they have and what you can do with them. Like you can't really mess around with the settings to change it. Like I can change the settings. I can make it longer. I can make it shorter. I can make it more intense, more deep. But with these systems that are for consumer only, you can just go up and down the muscles and that's it. And choose sort of like between endurance or like cardio and strength and recovery. But there are these two systems that exist for a consumer if people are interested.
So you're mostly doing in-person training, is that correct?
Yeah,
Because of
only in person.
this,
Yeah,
only in person, so no virtual.
yeah.
So
The only virtual thing that I offer is the workshop for trainers that want to become EMS trainers.
okay, okay, interesting. And you do a lot of professional clients that are kind of high-level professionals.
Yeah,
Is that true?
I have a couple clients actually, but I have a client that I go to his office here in LA and train him in his office. Like he just goes into the conference room and we put on the suit and he trains for 20, 30 minutes. And sometimes he's on a call at the same time, but like, yeah, so this happens. And then the other professionals, I usually train them in their house before or after work.
Now, thinking of transformation and physical transformation, of course, there's all kinds of transformation. You feel better, clothes fit better, that sort of thing. But looking at transformation, what could people expect to see in the mirror? And I know, again, it's going to be dependent on how often they train and whether or not they're dialing in their nutrition and their sleep and their stress.
Yeah. So for the most part, everybody has positive body composition changes. So losing fat, gaining muscle. Now, EMS, depending on how you use it and what parameters you use, it's mostly great at getting people stronger. So not necessarily something that you would see directly in the mirror, but you can change the settings. And I've now developed also settings for like hypertrophy where the focus is muscle growth and you do need to use some external weight there, but typically like 30 to 50% of whatever weight you can usually lift in order to get more hypertrophy as a result. For the most part, what has happened is most of my clients are female and most males are like their partners, husbands, or like I don't very skeptical, very I don't believe it, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. But then after a month or two, they start seeing changes in their wife, and they're like, I guess I need to try it myself. And then they try it, and then they start seeing changes in their body, and they're like, okay, great. And now they become clients.
I think that's typical. I found the same to be true. The wife comes to me, and the next thing you know, she's talking to her husband, and he's like, "Oh, how'd you get those results?" And it was that way with my husband when I first started bodybuilding. He was fascinated with the physical transformation. Of course, he wanted on board with that. So I wound
Has
up
he
no, but he definitely looks like he could be a competitor, very muscular, and he's kind of come along for the ride with me as far as the nutrition and the training.
you
It's
kind of
been a
have
little,
to. You
yeah,
kind of
you
have
kind
to.
of
Otherwise,
have
it's
to.
not fun for either person.
Yeah, because he is looking, going, now wait a minute, my wife's looking younger and fit. And I got to do this too. Such interesting, really, technology that we have now. It's just fascinating to me. Now, looking at the athlete, going back to the athlete, because I before I was a weightlifter, weight trainer, bodybuilder, I was a marathon runner, totally different body type.
Yeah.
And I imagine this could be beneficial because what runners tend to do is all they do is run. And then you've got, it's not the most attractive body type. And then you lose, like, I remember having poor posture when I only ran. I remember body composition wasn't that great because the cortisol response. I'm imagining this could be helpful to kind of balance that out.
It's resistance training, and runners, as you said, like tend to only like running. And
Hmm.
I hear from people like, oh, I only run, and that keeps me in shape, and they like how they look, and great. But you are missing out on. It's like saying like I don't floss. It's like great, you're brushing your teeth every day, but you're missing out on an important portion here of your health and hygiene. And so runners need to lift, and the more they lift, and do resistance training, the stronger their runs are, the more power they have, the more resistance there are, the less injury prone they're going to be. And so EMS is a great option for them because it is not a lot of stress on their joint, right? They're already putting all that stress when they're running, and it will get them stronger without joint pain. And also it will train all their muscles, which runners, if they lift, what I've seen is like, well, they want to get stronger at running, and so they'll only do like lunges and squats and so on. It's like, yeah, but if your arms and your obliques and everything are stronger, you're going to be able to power through a little
Oh,
better.
yeah.
And you need a stronger back, and so it all ties in together. And so with EMS, like, I rarely allow people to tell me I don't want to do upper body. Like that never happens. If we're doing EMS, we're doing all the muscles.
Oh, yeah.
And like, we're not saying like, okay, well, I don't want to train quads, and like then I take off the quads. Like, I still tell them, like, if you want less quads because they're overdeveloped, okay, let's not have the stimulation as high, but let's still have that you feel it at least a little bit.
Yeah, everything has to be trained, all the muscle groups. I'm the same too. Sometimes women will say, "Well, I just want to firm up this part of my body," and oh no, it doesn't work that way. You've got to do it all. And I'm imagining this might help with speed as well. I know that was a huge thing when I ran. I ran very competitively. I was ranked nationally at one point. So I was always trying to get this like tiny little edge with I mean the tiniest edge with my time.
Yeah. So speed is power, right? Like, you need a little more strength at every single step, and generate that strength very quickly, which is power. And if you can generate it just a split second faster every step, then you're gonna end up running faster. And so EMS can help because it will engage all the types of muscle fibers there are, and so including power and strength muscle fibers.
And then the endurance end of it, because that was the other part with a marathon, you get to that last 7 miles, it's like its own race. I mean, there's the 20 miles, and always I could get those 20 miles out. And then boy,
Yeah.
that last 7 miles, the weirdest things go through your head like, "Oh, there's a burger joint. Maybe I should just stop running."
Yeah, your body is like, I need fuel, so
Yeah.
please feed me. Yeah, with endurance. So again, EMS stimulates all the muscle fibers, so it is engaging the endurance muscle fibers, but the settings are typically, and how I use EMS is mostly to train the strength and power muscle fibers more than the endurance muscle fibers, because the endurance muscle fibers, one, you are the muscle fibers that you tend to lose the last, right? Like, as you age, and like, you're still walking, going for walks, or doing things, or going for hikes, but the endurance component, I tend to let people sort of like do what's fun for you, right? Like, if you want to train your cardio and so on, like, do something that is fun, and then with EMS, we'll focus on strength. But there are research studies on runners specifically that have increased their VO2 max and heart rate and variability and so on through EMS sessions, even though the EMS sessions were focused on strength. They were not using EMS sessions to train for endurance, and yet they still had good endurance outcomes. And then I mentioned my 80-year-old and 77-year-old.
Yeah.
So they, after 2 to 3 months of training with me, they had to do a heart stress test that they do every so often. Their results were better than 2 years prior, which at that age is a big difference.
Huge.
To not have it deteriorate or not have it progress slowly, but like to be better than 2 years prior. And we
That's
had not, we did not focus on cardio, like we focus on strength training.
wow. That's huge because that cardiovascular system, such a big part of longevity. We need the muscle, we need the bone density, but that cardiovascular, you really have to keep your cardiovascular system healthy. So it really impressive that they were able to do that at that age. And I think it gives us hope. Like it's not too late to start making those changes.
Yeah, they were only doing yoga like 2 or 3 times a week with a private instructor, which is great for flexibility and so on. But like, they were not really training their strength or their power or their endurance per se, and now they are.
What's the biggest transformation you've personally seen?
So I've seen people lose considerable amount of body fat and get stronger. And I'm talking about someone that was already very skinny to begin with. And I thought we took measurements, and she was somewhat of an influencer. That the whole we trained mostly to get pictures, and she was getting free training from it. And I thought, well, we're gonna take measurements, but I'm not sure. It was the first time I was like a little hesitant to take measurements because I was like, you're already so lean that I don't
Hmm.
know what you're gonna get out of it. But sure enough, like she cut in half her like arm body fat and then replaced it with muscle and her legs, everything. And she told me like, I feel so much better, and like the pains and the aches and like my back used to hurt, like I'm in the car all day. And she was a real estate agent, and she was like, I feel so much better, and my glutes are bigger, my legs feel better, my arms feel more muscular. And yeah, it was pretty incredible to see.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Many women come to me, and not all need to lose weight. A lot of them are at what you would call a healthy, normal weight, or even a little bit on the thin side. And that was me. I was definitely the skinny fat, where I was no problem with the number on the scale, but my body fat was high. And then I had more body fat around the midsection, which happens to women as they go through that perimenopause and menopause. But I think a lot of women are thinking, I need to lose weight, when in reality, it's really a body composition issue.
Yeah, the scale weight is something that needs to be eliminated from our day-to-day conversations, I think, because nobody cares if you're 60 or 80 pounds if you look good, right? Like, and looking good is somewhat of a very subjective measure of your own self-esteem and external judgment, I guess. But the scale weight is completely unimportant. And I've seen people gain weight, but then they're like, oh yeah, but my pants fit better, and my
Yes.
shirt fits better, and
Yes.
I feel better, and I look better. And like, okay, then forget the scale weight. Like, if you're gonna put on muscle, you're gonna be heavier on the scale.
Oh, yeah. Do you see women doing that more than men, like obsessed with that number on the scale?
I'm gonna say yes, but it's basically based on the number of women that I train versus men. But this is LA, and I have men. They're like, I need to look good in front of a camera and whatever. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
they're also like, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to look so very aesthetic conscious.
Yeah, I know working with women, it's such a diet mentality and a diet culture, and it's they've heard it since they were young. Many of them have been on their first diet at age 12 or 13, and it's just so ingrained rather than wanting to be strong and fit. I think that really needs to shift in our culture.
Which I think it is shifting. I was listening to Stacey Sims.
Oh, yeah.
Stacey
Yes.
Sims, she's been
She's
now
wonderful.
on a couple podcasts, and she's promoting like women need to lift heavy, need to
Yes.
eat protein, and like that. This shift, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm always happy to share these podcasts because it is pushing. And your own podcast, right? Like I saw that like the titles of many of your podcasts is like lift heavy, dial in your diet, your protein, blah blah, and so this conversation is very important, and I'm glad we're finally having it, and that it's a little more widespread that you should lift heavy and do resistance training and eat more protein. Doesn't matter whether you're man, woman, or other.
And what you're doing is an important piece of this because, as we were saying at the beginning, many of us can't lift heavy anymore, or we're really struggling with back problems, joint problems. And so this provides that avenue.
Yeah, it's another option, and when you're young, healthy, able, like you have all the options. You can do
Oh, yeah.
anything you want. Anything you want will be great, and will be fun. But the moment you start aging and start getting injured, and like your options start reducing, and then like you get recommended like you should do aqua gym, right? Like you should walk in the
Yeah.
pool. This is not the most fun. It's not the most convenient either to find a pool that you can walk in and not get bored out of your mind. And so I'm hoping that more people find out about EMS and see that it can actually be fun. It can be combined with other modalities, and it's short. And so even if you don't like it that much, you'll get all the benefits from it in a very short time, and it's going to be very efficient.
Mm. Yeah, it's just so important to have those options. I remember even being 50 and still feeling invincible, because 50 is a funny age where you still feel kind of young. You feel like you have one foot in your
As you should.
40s. And then you get into your 60s and it's an entirely different thing. You're focused on different things. It's less about aesthetics. I mean, that's still important to me, but not nearly as important as not having my world narrowed. Because what I see with aging is it can just make your world smaller and smaller and smaller. And I do not want that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good approach.
Well, thank you so much, Conrad. This has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed learning about this technology, and thank you for the work that you're doing and the avenue you're providing people with this. As we wrap up, was there anything I didn't ask you that you want the listeners or people watching to know, and how can they follow your work and get a hold of you?
Yeah, no, you you asked plenty of questions. They were very good questions. You're a very good interviewer, so thank you
Thank you.
for the opportunity. Yeah, no, people can find me on conrademsfitness.com. So that's my website. And then on Instagram, I'm at Conrad Fitness. I'm also on TikTok, LinkedIn, and so on, but all Conrad Fitness or ConradEMSFitness.com.
Wonderful. I'll make sure all of this is in the show notes. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.